Wednesday, March 10. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. Jamaica's vaccination rollout begins today. The island received 50,000 doses of AstraZeneca from the Government of India on Monday. The vaccination begins as the island undergoes a spike of COVID-19 cases. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Mr. Dunstan Bryan, provides an update on the rollout of the vaccination program.
Phase 1 being our priority group, which includes our healthcare workers, the elderly, Jamaica Defence Force, Jamaica Constabulary Force, schools, our government officials, Department of Correctional Services, PICA, and Jamaica Customs Agency. Phase 2 now moves into our economic sectors, and Phase 3 moves into our general population. Now, in terms of the rollout of Phase 1, we will see in March four groups of persons receiving vaccines. We start with our healthcare workers, and in March we will also provide approximately 25,000 elderly in infirmaries, elderly in homes, and other persons who are deemed in that 60 and over age group that can access our vaccination program in March. And the Jamaica Defence Force and Jamaica Constabulary Force. So in this month, in Phase 1, we intend to vaccinate those persons identified with some efficiency loss and some efficiency gain. In April, we then roll out to the wider population of the elderly and our educational institutions and persons working in educational institutions, and of course the other uniform groups.
Today, March 10, marks 1 year since Jamaica recorded its first COVID-19 case. Since then, the country has gone to record over 27,000 cases and at least 460 deaths. To date, over 14,000 Jamaicans have recovered from the virus. Here now is the latest clinical summary.
In the clinical summary for Tuesday, March 9, 808 new COVID-19 cases were reported. The overall case count now stands at 28,273. 3 new deaths were also reported, pushing the island's death toll from the virus to 463. Here now is the parish breakdown. Kingston and St. Andrew reported 216 cases, with St. Catherine 142 and St. James 57. St. Thomas and Trelawney both returned 53 positives, while St. Anne as well as Manchester had 47, and Hanover reported 44. Over in Westmoreland there were 36 new cases, while Clarendon and St. Elizabeth had 33 each. St. Mary has 26 and Portland 21. 50 recoveries have been reported over the past 24 hours, pushing that tally to 14,645. At this time, there are 277 persons in hospital, with 38 moderately ill and 31 critical. Melvin Pennant, PBCJ News.
A post-cabinet press briefing was held today at the office of the Prime Minister. Here are the highlights.
For this academic year, as we did for last year, we will only require our grade 6 students to sit the ability test. This test is now scheduled for Wednesday, May 26, 2021, instead of March 25, 2021. The administration of the ability test will be in all primary level institutions, presided over by external persons contracted by the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Given that our grade 6 students will only be required to take the ability test component of the PEP 6, how do we know who goes to what high school? We will use the same methodology we did last year. We will combine the results of the ability test to be taken on Wednesday, May 26, 2021, with the results of the grade 4 performance task exams in language arts and mathematics that the current grade 6 students would have sat in 2019. Because in 2019, our students who are in grade 6 currently would have been in grade 4. So we'll combine the results of the ability test to be taken on Wednesday, May 26, with the results of the grade 4 performance task that students would have sat in 2019.
With a 12% gross domestic product decline forecast for the economy this fiscal year, Minister of Finance and the Public Service, Dr. Nigel Clarke, says this is the worst economic contraction in Jamaica's history. He painted a picture of a challenging but definite financial recovery while giving the opening address to the 2021-2022 budget debate at Gordon House on Tuesday. Minister Clarke says the government's revenue intake is expected to take a big hit this fiscal year with a projected $70 billion decline. He explains the significance of the projected contraction in comparison to those in the past.
The closest comparisons were the decline of 6.5% in 1975, 5.7% in 1980, 4.6% in 1985, 3.9% in 1974, and 3.2% in 2009. None of these, Madam Speaker, was remotely close to the economic contraction that we have all lived through in 2020.
Dr. Clarke says the government is aware of issues being faced by Jamaicans due to the safety protocols set by the authorities to limit the spread of COVID-19. He notes the sense of hope being felt with the global distribution of COVID-19 vaccines.
Jamaica's trading partners are advanced in their own vaccination programs and could complete vaccination of their own populations by the end of the first or second quarter of the new fiscal year. Though it is often darkest before dawn, from all we can see and discern, it certainly looks as if we are about to enter the phase of the health crisis that can be described as the beginning of the end. For the economic crisis, however, Madam Speaker, we may only be at the end of the beginning. Our objectives and our goals are to have a faster economic recovery than we have ever had before, and to recover stronger than before.
Despite the loss of thousands of jobs since the start of the pandemic, Dr. Clarke is optimistic.
It took 4 years between 2016 and 2020 for the Jamaican economy to add 100,000 jobs. This is one of the most painful graphs. It took 4 years to add 100,000 jobs, as you can see, from 2016 to 2020. And in 4 months of the COVID-19 pandemic, over 130,000 jobs were lost. Madam Speaker, the Jamaicans who lost jobs in the pandemic could fill every seat in the National Stadium 4 times over. When we talk about economic recovery, therefore, we're talking about eventually, but the good news, Madam Speaker, is that you see, you just keep that graph, that the quarter ending October, the number of employed jumped, and we expect that and hope for that to continue.
According to Dr. Clarke, funds have been set aside for a range of infrastructural programs aimed at driving economic recovery and jobs.
There'll be $8.1 billion in targeted social support above and beyond the $16.4 billion already announced. $6 billion of this is captured under the Ministry of Finance. And now, when we spend, Madam Speaker, on our economic recovery, that it will positively impact social recovery through the employment channel. So as the construction projects get going, people will be employed, and there'll be social spill-off benefits. But we also have to make allocations where the social benefit is one of the primary objectives, where possible. And our environment is improved as a result. Right? This is absolutely necessary. It's vital. So, Madam Speaker, the Serve Jamaica program will provide $300 million to the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development for the Paint the City initiative, an innovative initiative, Madam Speaker, that will beautify and upgrade select town centers, including right here in Kingston, generating thousands of temporary jobs while also improving our environment.
The National Council on Drug Abuse, NCDA, wants Jamaicans to be Ganja literate. The council launched its Good Ganja Sense campaign on Tuesday. It's a continuation of public education campaigns focused on educating Jamaicans on the use of ganja following the decriminalization of the drug in 2015.
Executive Director of National Council on Drug Abuse, Michael Tucker, says there is a need for a public education campaign on the pros and cons of ganja use.
Successful national studies among the general and youth populations have shown that there's a need to undertake ongoing public education, clarify issues and myths surrounding ganja, especially with the changing legal context.
Mr. Tucker says the NCDA has been focused on educating teens about drug abuse through edutainment.
Additionally, the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information personnel, which included guidance counselors, health and family life education teachers, and these are discipline, were engaged regarding the Ministry of Education's policy for substance use in schools and to determine the extent to which they use the policy and their recommendations overall for improvement of this policy.
He says the campaign have been successful so far, with students have displayed knowledge on the effects of drug use.
Recognizing the success of the youth component, the Ministry of Health and Wellness proposed an expansion of the program to include a public education component for the general population. And of course, this is to address the ongoing myths that exist, advance the population's knowledge in relation to scientific value of ganja, and continue the dialogue on decriminalization and how we should operate in this environment.
According to Mr. Tucker, the new campaign aims to utilize memorable, innovative, and targeted activities within the general population.
Range of strategies that will be used include social media advocacy, radio and television ads, print media and print materials, and billboards. Ladies and gentlemen, the NCDA has been in existence for almost 40 years, and we recognize the fundamental needs to incorporate community-based engagements that bolster efforts to increase knowledge, as we are keenly aware that knowledge by itself does not change behavior. So the Good Ganja Sense campaign will have community-based participatory tools such as games and other interactive learning elements for the purpose of reinforcing concepts and generating interest about a balanced approach to ganja. The groups to be targeted includes parents, youth, community leaders, and community groups, among others.
Melvin Pennant, PBCJ News.
The public is being advised that the Jamaica Defense Force, JDF, will be conducting training exercises in and around the Titchfield area in Portland today, March 10, until Friday, March 12. A JDF statement explains that there is no need for residents to be alarmed by the presence of soldiers, as the training exercises in their community will not involve any live firing and therefore will pose no danger. Residents are being asked not to interfere with training aids. If residents need more information, or in the event that unexploded ordnances or paraphernalia are found, please report it to the JDF headquarters at telephone number 876-960-8776.
Hello! Today we're going to be making breakfast and preparing a lunch box for school. Let's start with some sugar and salt, and wash it down with a nice big glass of more sugar. And now for the lunch box. Let's put in saturated fat, more salt, and sugar. Foods high in salt, fats, and sugar increase the risk of hypertension, obesity, heart disease, and type 2 diabetes. Now more than ever, we have the right to know what's in our food. Give us warning labels on the front of our food packages.
In this episode of Living Healthy, we get part 2 of HD's Jazz Talk with Certified Master Trainer Omar West.
Omar, you're going to kill me. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of HD's Jazz Journey. We're in the hills of St. Andrew, and today I have with me Certified Master Trainer, him out to kill me, Omar West. And we're going to talk about the benefits of exercise for a healthy lifestyle. Come on.
Chop.
A lot of people have issues with airway, and there are many red flags. But one specific red flag is if you're a woman and your neck size is 16, if you're a man and it's 17, you're more likely to have issues with obstructive sleep apnea.
Right.
So the traditional view is the pot-belly man who has slowed down and now begins to snore much more loudly than he's ever done before. Somebody with that, they always tell you if you can lose weight, it's going to be better. Will that 300 steps a week? No, this is not 300 minutes a week. Help that person?
300 a minute will help that person. However, you mentioned the pot belly, you mentioned the size of the neck. You have to keep in mind though that we can't spot reduce. So you can't tell your body where to lose that fat from. Your body's gonna lose the fat from wherever it wants to lose the fat from first. So it's gonna be an overall thing, it's gonna be a general thing. So the 300 minutes per week will help. And remember, that's the minimum, and that's where we should be starting for weight loss.
Yes.
That's where we should be starting. And as we go along, you want to try to improve. You're always trying to progress. There's always need for progression. If there's no progression, your body's going to get to a point where it's adapted to what you've done, and it'll just stop adapting. So yes, the 300 minutes will definitely help that person with the neck or the pot belly or just weight loss in general. As long as they set realistic goals. If you're doing the picking up daisies thing, don't expect to lose the weight overnight. Right? So set realistic goals, have realistic expectations. But yes, indeed, that's a good place to start, and that will indeed help a person to lose the fat in the neck or the stomach.
Well, Omar, it's no known secret that we have a love-hate relationship. I hate coming to the gym, but there's no other person I'd rather train me than you. Thank you so much for your time today. And I promise my picking up daisies are in the past. I'm now talking. How about that?
All right, now we're talking. Good.
All right, thank you.
You're very welcome, anytime at all.
So you've seen me at my best, and you just saw me at my worst. Remember, 150 minutes a week for healthy living, 300 minutes a week minimum for weight loss, according to my trainer, Omar. So let's get moving. You may not end up at the stadium being a world-renowned athlete, but you certainly can do your ultimate best to keep yourself strong and healthy. Listen, I'm out of here. Catch me on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and our LFD website. I'll see you next time on HD's Jazz.
Hello. Today we're going to be making breakfast and preparing a lunchbox for school. Let's start with some sugar and salt, and wash it down with a nice big glass of more sugar. And now for the lunchbox. Let's put in saturated fat, more salt, and sugar. Foods high in salt, fats, and sugar increase the risk of hypertension, obesity, heart disease, and type 2 diabetes. Now more than ever, we have the right to know what's in our food. Give us warning labels on the front of our food packages.
Global oil prices remain stable. We get this and other details in the business report with Gabriel Thompson.
In Tuesday's trading session, the JSE combined index declined by 1,221 points to close at under 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 90 stocks, of which 41 advanced, 40 declined, and 9 traded firm. The junior market index advanced by 4 points to close at under 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for Access Financial Services Limited, Blue Power Group, and Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Variable Preference, 1834 Investments Limited, and AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited. Trading firm were CAC 2000 9.5% preference shares, Caribbean Producers Jamaica, and Community and Workers of Jamaica CCU deferred share. Lumber Depot Limited was the volume leader with over 1.7 million units, followed by Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares with 1.4 million units and Jamaican Teas Limited with over 1.3 million units. In foreign exchange trading for Tuesday, March 9, the US dollar ended trading at $148.59. The Canadian dollar sold for an average $119.17. The pound sterling traded for $206.05, and the euro ended trading at $179.51. Oil prices were steady on Wednesday, supported by an Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development (OECD) forecast for the global economic recovery and by OPEC Plus oil output curbs, but held in check by rising U.S. inventories. Brent crude futures fell 3 cents to $67.49 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose 10 cents to $64.11 a barrel. And on that note, we end this edition of the Business Report on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
Regionally, in Barbados, the government on Tuesday made moves to set up a new agency to investigate corruption and terrorism matters in the island.
Attorney General Dale Marshall tabled the Anti-Corruption and Anti-Terrorism Agency Bill 2020 that will give rise to the Anti-Corruption and Anti-Terrorism Agency.
What we are looking to set up is a standalone, dedicated agency that investigates corruption and terrorism issues. Now, again, I say that these are issues that are currently within the purview of the Royal Barbados Police Force. And sir, it is not the intention of this agency to remove those things from the Royal Barbados Police Force at all. In fact, it is anticipated that in many areas, this agency will work very closely with all of our existing institutions. So that this bill talks about working with strategic partners.
Opposition leader Bishop Joseph Atherley supports the new agency, and he urged government to ensure that the new legislation upholds the integrity of the island's democratic institutions.
Democracy is about the effective and proper, wholesome functioning of institutions. And if that is not in place, and if that is not a practice which comes normally, most people lose a sense of confidence in those institutions. When those institutions are no longer credible, then our system goes awry, our culture is in trouble, our people suffer, country declines.
The Airport Authority of Trinidad and Tobago has been preparing and testing its COVID-19 measures with the domestic and repatriation flights.
The Airports Authority of Trinidad and Tobago is assuring all passengers that COVID-19 measures have been heightened and continues to be an important tool to mitigate the spread of the virus. And in the event that the borders are fully reopened, it says it is ready and waiting for any eventuality. This is what is seen by immigration officials at the Tobago departure gate, the temperature of travelers being checked in for their flights. But even prior to this, temperature checks are done at the entrance to the airport, along with the mandatory hand sanitizing stations, which are placed throughout the building. Deputy General Manager of Operations Kurt Minal says the authority has in its possession electrostatic foggers, which are used to sanitize areas regularly.
We are constantly reviewing our equipment, our processes. So for example, the electrostatic foggers, initially we did not have them, but then we realized the requirement for them. And yes, we do purchase those things which are required based on the projected traffic. So what we're doing is scenario planning.
And whenever the decision is taken to open the borders, Mr. Minal says the Airports Authority would be in a state of readiness.
So when the government does make the announcement, the airlines would kick in their mechanisms. So as an example, they require approximately 6 weeks before they could actually put a flight on a route. So they would need an opportunity to upload it to their systems, to advertise, etc., to do their marketing. But the Airports Authority would be ready to receive the airlines.
And to those who say COVID-19 is being spread during flights, Mr. Minal says there's no real evidence to suggest this.
IATA as a body has conducted studies in conjunction with the WHO to prove that the spread of COVID-19 within the body of a plane is not significant. So even on the planes, for example, you would see that they don't go to 100% capacity. Caribbean Airlines, as an example, on their domestic route, carries 75% of their load.
The deputy manager shows that there will be more robust procedures moving forward. He says passengers can move freely within the airport without fear.
So again, flying is safe. It's safer than walking.
Sonolala, TTT News.
The Royal Bahamas Police Force has launched an investigation into an alleged police brutality incident recorded on a voice note that went viral.
Of course there is.
The National Security Minister was quick to insist that a full-scale investigation has been launched into the disturbing 4-minute and 39-second voice note. He told reporters outside Cabinet that when he learned of it, he called for the matter to be looked into immediately.
That matter is in hand and will be addressed as soon as possible to determine exactly what it all means. And I'm not going to preempt anything the Commissioner does. That's it. That is under his remit. And we had a good conversation today, and I am confident that he will do whatever is necessary as he commences investigations.
The investigation follows the release of this voice note in which a man who identified himself as a senior police officer reportedly assaulted an individual.
He crying now. Tear him up, man.
Put your hands down. Look at me. Look at me.
There you go. That's what you need.
Don't mix me up, man. Don't mix me up with nobody else. See this boy shit? Don't mix me up. You hear me? I'm talking to you. Did you hear me? Sit your down.
Throughout the recording, another individual can be heard inquiring about the charges against him. Someone else can be heard bragging about beating drug dealers. As the alleged beating took place, another man, also believed to be an officer, encouraged it. It is unclear from the voice note what prompted the confrontation. Dame says the verdict is still out on the alleged incident in the voice note. The minister sending this warning to law enforcement officers.
This is the world that we're living in, and everything is under the microscope. And so it's incumbent upon public officers to conduct themselves accordingly.
Now, the National Security Minister says there are simply some details that he cannot give, like how many people are involved in that investigation. However, he says the matter will be investigated thoroughly. Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown. In sport.